to speak
John,
up.
you gotta walk up to the podium.
Okay, John Donchis, 559 Minor Street. If you could just either use the equipment that is here for recording or microphones so that people with hearing problems might be able to hear what goes on and post these things that are good, or just speak up, please. For right now, that is all I have.
All right. Now, we're still, I believe, at a $74,000 shortfall in the budget. We'll see what Mr. Neely has and what he says. There are some questions that I asked him that I'm waiting for. He should have some answers for that. I don't know if they'll help us or not, but there were some questions that I had that I emailed him. Who knows? I don't have electric. I don't even know what day it is. But there's a few things there that I asked him questions about that hopefully he has some answers for. Anything from the department heads? Anything you want to say? Anything you found out? Anything that can help us? I mean, I know everybody's cut as far as we can cut. I'm not expecting that unless there's something that you found out that we don't know.
The only thing that, I don't know, I talked to Neely the next day, which, yeah, I don't know which day it is anymore.
Yeah.
Running around. But you had about the volunteer pension?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did originally go to 15,000. Then when the interest rates went up, they said we could drop it to 10. But then last year they asked us if we could raise it again because the interest rates had dropped out to, continue. And that's why it was at 15 for next year.
Now, when you say they, there's an organization that manages your pension fund.
Yeah, the Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services is who manages the account.
Is there any chance the Fireman's Relief Fund can fund that? I don't know how the Fireman's Relief Fund works.
Yeah.
I know it came in at 120 instead of 80 though, and I know there's 40,000 extra dollars that wasn't budgeted in there.
Okay, that's being used to accommodate the aerial not being sold at this time.
Basically towards the purchase price.
Right, towards the purchase price of the new aerial, which will be coming next Friday. I went up to see it today. It's a dealer. They got stuff that they have to do to it, so it'll be here Friday. But that's what, and that's a one-time deal. Next year it's going back down to 80. We got already informed. There must have been a glitch in the system because everybody got more than what they normally get, or we would only have gotten 80 this year. But that's actually a one-time deal.
Okay, now when that old aerial sells, will that money will be revenue that wasn't planned for?
Yeah, we may only get 10,000 for the old aerial. That's what I was told it was valued at. So, I mean, some of that won't be coming back.
But we could then budget 10,000 in revenue for the sale of that for next year?
It's possible. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the price is going to be. It's advertised again as of now, but I haven't had anybody ask me any information on it or any.
Well, at some point it has to sell for
yeah.
something, correct?
Right.
So 10,000, you believe this is the minimum what you would get?
10,000 may be the maximum we get. I don't know. I was told that. That's the only thing that's valued at. He said it's an obsolete cab. Well, sure it is. It's 22 years old. It would be an obsolete cab. And he said since there's no pump and tank on it, that's what people are looking for. You want a pump and a tank on the aerial. Well, it probably would have been sold by now if that would have been on there. But
Is there a number that we can plug into next year's budget for the sale of the aerial as a revenue line item?
I'd probably say like to be on the safe side, 10.
Okay. You comfortable with that, Greg?
Hey, where are you going to put it? The general fund is going to.
I'm assuming it would have to go back into the general fund as a sale of equipment, or I mean, you could put it in capital if we have a way to close, but right now we're still at the $70,000 shortfall, $74,000 shortfall. That becomes a $64,000 shortfall if we plug the sale of that aerial in. Now, I don't know if there's anything wrong with doing that. It would make sense to me though to plug it back into the general fund, 10,000 from the sale of that aerial, and then we're down to 64. There's 10,000 off the top right away. You're comfortable with that, Chief Rice?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. The next line item would be the downtown officer. Chief Faust, any recommendations? I know you've told us a lot about it, talked a lot about it. I don't know if you've heard anything lately or.
I gave you three options that, you know, that I see as far as deciding points for you. I suppose what you could do is you could scale it back, and then if it creates some revenue, you know, we can adjust hours. So what I need to know is, first and foremost, is do we even interview anybody for the position?
We have to decide if we're going to fill it.
And if you're going to fill it and you're going to scale the budget back, that's completely fine. But we would have to communicate that to the applicant.
Sure. Now, if we choose not to fill the position, $21,000 we add back into your budget, $21,000 we add back into the general fund. It would be my recommendation not to fill the position at this point. I haven't heard differently. I haven't had anyone contact me about how important it is.
You're going to hear it from the downtown merchants. They rely on that individual, and that's on the average, maybe $5,000 in parking revenue, or parking tickets that we do get.
It varies.
So if anything, I would rather reduce the hours
Okay.
of that individual and at least fill the position, that we do have somebody down there, but reduce the 21,000 to even 15 or 14,000.
Now, he had a recommendation of a $10,000 reduction, budget $11,000
Right.
for the officer. What are your feelings, Mr. Reimer?
Yeah, I follow your thought process more on that. Let's see what happens with that filled and see where that takes us. Put a need to put it back in later.
Before I do anything final there, I think it's my responsibility to talk to the Main Street program and anyone else downtown and see how they truly feel. See if it is. I mean, if they haven't contacted me. I haven't heard anything. They're going to say they want to fill immediately
I've heard
and fully
from
funded.
merchants, they want it filled.
They're waiting for an answer from me.
Okay.
They've
They
been
want it filled.
beating my door down, to be quite honest with you, and I haven't committed.
Sure. No, you can't because it's based on us.
Right.
Well, because of that, I would be comfortable with the $10,000 reduction, budgeted for $11,000. Get somebody in there part-time and hope that there's a way that a little more revenue is generated that you could then ramp it up. Is there a time of the year that's more critical than others with that position, or is it just a Monday to Friday needed to help people cross the street and enforce parking?
We used to run like Tuesday to Saturday with them, and, you know, to scale it back, we'd probably do like a Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the most. With those kind of hours, $11,000 isn't going to go too far. But there's events going on all year. We got some coming up for Christmas now. We have stuff going on for the summer. So there's really no time of year that's better than others at Ray work year-round.
Sure.
He was a revenue generator, obviously. He was very proactive and even went beyond the scope of the downtown for enforcement. So by scaling the hours back, we're not going to expect to have that kind of revenue, $3,000 or $4,000 in parking ticket fine money to come back to us. So everybody has to be conscious of that. Number one is you're only going to be getting a person for maybe 2 days instead of 4, or a 30, 35-hour person. And that's going to have to be communicated to the Main Street program too, so they understand that these are going to be the hours we're going to cover, and that's it.
Now, for $11,000, how many hours a week do you believe we get?
Maximum 20. Maximum 20 hours.
And the other one was at the full 21,000. We were hoping for 35 hours.
We used to work, Ray used to work 35 to 38 hours, and in doing so, that's how you keep a person from being a full-time employee. We kept his hours down as best we could. But you're not going to get 4 or even 5 days a week of 5-hour stints from that kind of budget. That's not going to happen. So they're going to have to be satisfied with what is their busiest time downtown for shoppers and pedestrians and traffic, and identify those days of the week. If it's Friday and Saturday, Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings into the afternoon, whatever, you're not going to get much more hours out of that position.
Well, I believe I will talk to the Main Street partners and let them know that's what we're hoping to fund is there, and maybe we can get a little bit out of them as to when they feel that's not the best times are for that person to be out, and I'm sure they'll talk to you also. But maybe if we at least express that to them, maybe they have some interest in helping us fund the remainder of the position too. I don't know that.
This
I'm
year
assuming they don't have the budget to do it.
Right.
But you never know that they don't have a way if they talk to their merchants.
Right. This year we cut out the farmer's market, which was cut, last year at this time for this year's budget, and, they squawked about it, but it's just, it's something we had to do. So they're gonna have to understand that
Right.
all they're getting is a very part-time person. That's all you're gonna get for that kind of a budget.
Are you comfortable with that, Mrs. Gilmer?
Mhm.
Comfortable with that?
I would still take it and wait and see what happens. So my question is, at $11,000 of funding, are the startup costs worth it?
Are the what?
Startup costs to get that person street ready?
Well, we have to provide some uniforms, we have to provide some training, which we would have to do whether the person's 35 hours, 38 hours, or whatever. It's gonna be some additional cost, but I'm looking at that line item just to pay salary. So, yeah, there's gonna be some money coming out of uniforms. I would expect at least another $1,000. You gotta train the person, and you gotta equip them and give them uniforms. So, sure, there's some additional cost to that, which we absorb in those other line items. It depends on what kind of services you're looking for, if any.
Right. Well, I would say, Mr. Neal, if we would put that in at 11,000, change that line item to 11,000, line item 410,137. So 11,000 instead of 21,000. Library funding, can we fund at last year's level with no increase? That is a savings, I believe I calculated $2,286 if we fund them this year the same as next year. Does that sound right to you?
Slightly modified, you'll see that, I put 717,000 before, the actual number is 116,000 change. So if you're basing.
116,601.
If you're basing your calculation on 116,601, you're based on 117,000.
I'm basing it on 116,601. I'm basing it, funding it at 114,315. That is line item 456,520. I believe what I did is 116,601 minus 114,315. Now I could be off somewhere.
Okay.
But if everyone's comfortable just funding the library at the level it was before, that's another $2,286. So that would be 10,000 from the fire department, 10,000 from the chief, 2286 from the library, 22,286 so far. That gets us to about 52, a little over 52,000. Oh, there's one line item, 510,134, which was the crossing guards, which Chief Faust had said we could reduce 500, and I'm not sure the reduction was put in.
We got 410,
410,134.
134.
I think you had recommended a $500 reduction in 410,134
Yeah,
that didn't get included in it.
and we're basing that off of donations we've been receiving the past couple of years for the guards. In the past we spend a little more on them, but some people have stepped up and have offered some of the things we provided before, so if that lasts forever, we don't.
And that gets us to cuts of 22,786, a little less than 52,000. 51,700 something. Special Entertainment Committee, 454. 300 is budgeted at 12,000. I know how people feel about that. I'm not comfortable cutting it completely. It is a large expenditure. Excuse me. It is a large expenditure, though. I'd be comfortable cutting some portion of that out, having the Special Entertainment Committee seek private donations. I don't actually. Is there still is a Special Entertainment Committee now that I'm referring to them? I don't know if they exist or not. Commission. Thank you. I don't know if anyone has a recommendation. I had other council members recommend cutting it in half. I don't know how anybody feels about that.
We've spent everything we did in this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they use all the money, I agree that, that's what pays the bands. So the only, I mean, and I believe they will spend all of that money again next year, so to cut it, the repercussion is we're gonna get screamed at.
Yeah.
And,
We're gonna get screened at with the downtown position as well, so.
unless someone has another recommendation, I mean, you can leave it at what it is for now, and I don't know what the answer is. Mr. Neely, I know I had sent an email about, go ahead, were you gonna say something, Mr. Ryder?
Well, no, I'm talking to myself. I think lowering it, it's not a primary service. We're going to hear from that. Everybody. We're going to, no matter what service we cut, someone will get up and say we need that. It's a matter of, is that group that's going to stand up representative of a majority of the borough? That is something that we truly need to consider.
Cutting a downtown officer to me is pretty significant. We're taking away safety to a degree, we're taking away parking, cutting a concert series is not. I know that people are going to be more vocal because of that. I mean, I know it's going to happen, I'm not. But I don't know the answer. I mean, I know the recommendation was to cut it in half from other council people. I don't know that it's our smartest bet, and maybe it's something we should do in the preliminary budget and have the opportunity to figure out how to bring it back up. If it's that bad that we have to go there, or if someone recommends that, I don't know what the solution is.
I'm not necessarily looking for an answer to this hypothetical question. It's not all that hypothetical. It is, Josephine Sanchez has already had all the bands sign contracts.
Correct.
And you sign contracts for next year, which you done every year. You cut that in half. Now, is she then instructed to cancel a certain number of those contracts? Because they have to be scheduled. So we should do that. Fundraising is always a crapshoot. A couple
Correct.
years ago, there was a gentleman who stepped forward and paid $10,000, actually paid for the entire select members. You don't decide this now, we have to decide whether you.
Now, I know I had emailed you some questions, water rates. So the possibility of raising water rates to fund the general fund would be the first question.
If you wanted to raise water rates, there would be ways within the budget to use that to fund some expenditures.
Okay.
That's what you want to do.
Now, if we do raise water rates, do you know numbers of if you raise water rates this much, this is the amount of revenue that could be generated?
We generate $900,000 of revenue right now in water rates. So if you raise it $1.92 per $1,000, if you raise water rates by 5%, 5% of 900,000, which is $45,000.
So 5% equals $45,000.
The sewer is about 900,000 also.
Okay. Now, I guess the next step is to get that information, to be able to analyze that information, to decide what we want to do. Because does it make more sense to increase water rates a little bit and keep a full downtown officer and keep a full-time officer, allow the summer concert series to go on? I don't know the answer. It's a philosophical question, I believe. It's not, I don't know. The ability to raise the revenue through water and sewer rates then is legal and okay and can be done. Okay. So then it's just a feeling of how do council people feel about doing it?
Mhm.
How do we feel? How do we feel about raising?
We're one of the lowest in the area, right, for our water rates, 192. per 1,000 gallons.
What is, some of them are 350.
Jeff Copper pays
Over
$4.50 per 1,000 gallons.
I know, it was just, Allentown just raised them to generate revenue, South Whitehall just raised them to generate revenue.
So we wouldn't
It's,
be the only
we would
ones
not be the
generating.
only people doing it. My philosophy is that it's not the right way to do it, but it seems to me that it's the only option to do it. I shouldn't say it's the only option, it's the best option in my mind to raise revenue. How do you feel, Mr. Ryan?
Well, if we get to the point that we need to increase revenues, I would rather see that happen than see village increase
Right, fantastic.
than a tax increase. But I think there's a lot of discretionary utility items still that I think we need to take a hard look at. It's not just the three of us weighing in, full council, we'll hear, comments come back from the select groups that will not like potentially looking at unfunding those, but you gotta take a look at the special entertainment committee, gotta take a look at the Main Street funding. I think it's not, the down street officer, the downtown officer is one area, even our drug task officer is another area. That these are places that, in our budget, that we, if we're hard up to find different areas for cash, we have to take a very hard look at them before we go out and start taxing or, increasing revenues.
Increasing fees to generate
Increasing
revenue.
fees. I mean, they're not popular decisions. They're not necessarily all decisions I would want to see if it was worked out perfectly. But, we're now at a time where, we've seen 3.9 raises for a number of years. Sort of creating this scenario.
Let me just ask you this directly. You're at about 50,000. What, in your world, give us some items that you want to cut to get us down to.
I would get full council together, not just our committee, because it's going to be a 2-1, it's going to be 1-2 votes.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I am not, these are things, the downtown officer is something I would have never wanted to cut. Never.
Let me just say this, from a process standpoint, and this is my feeling, I think it's the department head's feelings, is this is now probably, what, the 4th budget and finance committee meeting? We've gone through this entire thing, how many times we've whittled it down. The way that we normally do it is, the people on the committee, they're trusted. This is why you're on a committee. You're trusted with doing the legwork and the analysis of what you as a council person think. Want to cut, not cut, whether it should be raised revenue or not raised revenue. At this point, we've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
And I just want to express a little level of frustration, is that I've heard suggestions from Brian, less suggestions from Leanne. I've heard none from you. And we all know that there's been 3.9% raises, and maybe that's contributed to something. But the fact is right now, the hard decisions have to be made, and those decisions start here. They don't start with those 7 people. And yes, those 7 people, once you all get together, it may change things. It probably very well might. But what needs to come from this committee is a recommendation, whether it be 2 to 1 or unanimous. And what your ideas are now, frankly, are important to me. Your input right now as to what you think the decisions ought to be are important. And that's why I asked the question. And I think that by not answering the question, all you're doing is pushing this off to another day and not taking the responsibility you have to this committee. Okay? Everybody, it's impossible to have got to this point and gone through the laborious process and not have an opinion on some of the plans. You clearly have strong opinions, and I think now is the time. Not because I want to put you on the spot, but because I haven't heard from you on these things. And I know what your goal is. And how do you propose to get there? And if you have a good idea to do it, I'm all for it. I want to just blow it up.
Can I answer your question?
Sure.
Sure. What's going through? You said this is our 4th meeting. You're right, on 10/6, I wasn't able to be here. I offered up that I believe every department head, and I said, I put out there that there's 5 departments I see within this borough need to come back with a pro rata expense lessening thought process.
Okay.
On 10/13, we had a meeting, and we discussed that. At that meeting, I again asked the department heads, one who expressed at the 10-6 meeting, that they want to be kept in the loop. So, okay, I asked, why don't you come back again with a list of what things are to get us at that point in time, we were down 110,000 in the general fund. Give us a list so that we can go through and see from your perspective what's important to your departments and what those ramifications are if we start eliminating those expense items. All right? We didn't get those at the 1027 meeting. We whittled down some items, we added some revenue items. I didn't get a full-blown list of things that would fully get us down to a $0 general fund deficit. So we're here again now, coming up with these areas.
They don't, the problem is they don't exist.
They don't, well, they do exist. It's cutting services.
Exactly.
We don't want to cut services. I'm talking now, you had your opportunity, didn't you, Mr. Miller? Okay, you asked, I'm going through the process of, this is our 4th meeting now, and now it's time to find those line items, right? So, if you're gonna ask me, what am I gonna do? If I see we're at 51,000, where can we make 51,000 up? All right, we have the special entertainment committee. It's not a primary service to the borough. Is it something that's enjoyable? Yes, it is. Is it gonna be unpopular? Yes, it will be. But it's not water and sewer, and it's not safety of our residents. So it's something we have to strongly consider because we have a deficit. I think we have to look at other areas as well that are not solely Emmaus Borough oriented. And although the Drug Task Force officer is a great resource to us, we're funding a county initiative with that. So that's something we have to come back and look at. That's something Brent's stated every year I've been on council. It's a county project that we're funding. I also know that Brent made some suggestions.
Well, let's go with yours first, though. Now, the Special Entertainment Committee, you're recommending we cut that line item to 0?
If we're looking at a tax increase or
We're looking at a fee
increase,
increase.
a fee increase.
Right now, my recommendation to Craig would be, I've cut everything I feel could possibly be cut. I don't see one more number that I could cut. I spent a lot of time in this budget. I think that's what we're down to. The only other thing that I could possibly see cutting is completely cutting the downtown officer. I heard some strong feelings. I respect those strong feelings. I'll keep it at half. I have nothing else in this budget that could be cut. Maybe I could get from Jeff $1,000 out of parks maintenance or fields, or I could go to UIA and get 1,000 or 2. But I don't think the struggle's worth it. I think we're at the point where I would rather you balance the budget right now with whatever increase it takes in water rates to make a balanced budget at the point that we're at, and we are as bare bones as
I'm
we
going
can
to
go.
interrupt you there. I know how frustrating the people feel about it, but I will. Because, and this is why I want to know, Mr. Member, because as we did like last year, we had a couple possible budgets. And if it's that there's a disagreement among the Budget and Finance Committee, and say these two think of one thing and you think of another, I'm happy to put together for discussion purposes, to ease the discussion when it gets to full council, a separate document that incorporates your suggested changes. Okay? That we then can say, I can then prepare a memorandum, say, here are the differences between the two. There's a split on the Budget and Finance Committee, and explain 2 of them, so that we then jump into a discussion with 7 people with at least 2 recommendations in front of them. And that then at least makes a more targeted discussion among council. My concern is that even though we've been doing this for a long time, if we just come in with one document that balances it in the way they want to, but then you come in illegitimate, totally legitimate, saying, I think these areas are ones we have to look at. You know what? Now we're going to have to get into a long discussion about, first of all, do we even want to consider those, the various amounts, how much would actually balance the budget. So what I'm asking for really is, it's not trying to do anything bad. It's trying to get your position on the table so we can bring it, if necessary, as 2 positions in front of our council.
Now, I respect that. That's good. But I want your line items with your numbers. As chair of this committee, I want line items and the new numbers, how they exist. I don't just want your philosophy of, I believe we should pull back the Drug Task Force officer. That's a great philosophy. I understand it. I've heard it forever. But you've got to have a number for me of where that saves me the dollars to get me a balanced budget. Because your philosophy doesn't get me money to balance a budget. doesn't. I mean, I've got lots of philosophies, there's all kinds of things I could do, but they're not numbers that are gonna balance me a budget.
But, right, I mean, just in fairness to all.
No, I think 2 documents are great.
In fairness to all, drug task force officer is gonna, you get, very simple, you get rid of that officer right now, it balances the budget. It's about 60 grand.
But-
Now, there are other ancillary issues.
But to get rid of the officer means we then don't hire,
Well,
we
you
pull
only-
him back. We've already hired him.
You have to.
It doesn't balance the budget. Council just approved 3 officers to be hired 2 council meetings ago. Those people are processed through the Commonwealth, and they are employed by you. You would have to furlough someone. Now, quite frankly, it's suggested here that no line items were produced for reduction. I provided you all with a memo at the last budget meeting, which you have a copy on.
Chief, is that the one that's dated
October 26th.
That's correct.
Wait, before my words start to get spun, I talked about department heads bringing us to a point of getting, that we had enough items to get us down to 0. I know everybody came here and provided forth information to reduce some line items and increase some revenues. What I had asked for was something that gets us down to 0, so we can see everything from your perspective, keeping you all in the loop as you requested, and trying to talk and decipher which of those. We still have, today, we started off with the 74,000 and change deficit. That's what I'm alluding to. So I understand all 4 of you came to the table with line items and tried to help bring that reduction, that deficit down. Okay? I understand that.
It actually happened. It's produced in a memorandum. It happened. Up to $47,000 of suggested reductions were provided to you. They were given to you.
From your department alone.
So I'm taking issue with that because last year it was 76,000. Last meeting it was 46,000. Now another 10,000. Now you're recommending the furlough of an officer, and we haven't even talked about the other discretionary items. So is the department head in charge of public safety offended sitting here right now? Yes, I am. It might be easy for you to grasp at that. This is an easy thing. We just lay someone off. But what do you think? You're talking about the tough questions? The tough questions are going to be, what are the needs of the people? And I have a responsibility too. So been playing ball here, but this is a source of frustration because now you're just going to keep picking and picking. From one department, that's unfair. Frankly, it's unfair. And you're going to have to need to describe that to the people. How much more can we get? We're down to it. Now we're at the tough decisions. But are we going to keep pulling from the same department? Is that fair? Or maybe you need to look at some discretionary things.
I agree.
That's all I ask.
I
Just
agree
be fair.
100%, and I've already told you, I don't want to lose that guy, because I understand the value he brings. I've told you that.
My point is you replace a person. A person, an employee is an employee no matter what assignment you give them. You leave that responsibility to the department heads to deploy their people in an appropriate manner. You give us a staff of people. Right now, the staff of people is up to full strength because council chose to do that. So what I'm saying to you is that employee is on the books, no matter where they're assigned, to the detective's office, narcotics, patrol, or whatever. The department heads decide that because you entrust us to do that. What I'm saying to you is you have to furlough people now. That's what you're down to. Just so that we're understanding of that. That's what we're down to. Just so everybody knows what decisions have been made, you just hired 3 officers for vacancies. And we're talking about cutting hours of another position, which we've done here this afternoon. How many more steps are we going to take before we look at all the options? That's all I'm asking, is fairness.
I'm over, okay. All right, the areas you want to look at are special entertainment commission. Just identify the areas you want to look at. Special entertainment commission.
We're going to look at the utility items. Has,
And then I have down here the furlough of the police officer. That's an issue that you might want to take, right?
I think something that if we can't bring this down, needs to be considered. Again, what I'm talking about, things that should be spoken about and considered if we can't bring it down.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to, I want to identify the
Okay,
list,
so
so
let's
that
identify.
I can look at it, and, you know, we can work from there.
Okay.
What else is on the list?
Main Street funding. Now, looking at suggestions I've heard already, the straight hours on Saturday at the complex, I don't believe that was adjusted at this time.
Yeah, I don't know contractually, union-wise, how that Saturdays work, but I know there was a recommendation of eliminating Wednesday nights. I don't think that was ever plugged into a budget. Or what, I don't think
But I
wages,
think
I don't know that
Jeff
wages
gave
were,
us-
I don't know that wages were reduced.
No, they weren't, and there is the ability to go to straight time on Saturdays by taking a guy off of regular duty.
Off of regular duty, one of the 5 days during the week and allowing them to work Saturday. That's valid, and I'm sorry, I'd forgotten that.
What else?
I have minor revenue items such as pool fees, which go to the fee list. When we look at that about increasing,
Revenue items to consider. Again, I understand, these are just considerations. I don't want to
yes,
try to do different. Pool fees, would that be potentially for both residents and non-residents?
yes, yes. What I would like to go to is we have the cost for the residential full season membership. We have a cost for a non-resident season membership. From there, we have one daily rate to enter the pool at the pool location, and then to sell like a 10-book pass or a borough hall for residents if they want to purchase, have reduced costs, but it gives us a block of funding up front with that 10-book, say 10-book pass or 10-ticket pass, etc. Which is minor funding. And then, I think we need to consider, for the non-unionized employees, percentage increases.
You want their, what is the percentage increase? I think there's two elements to this. There's contributions to healthcare and increases. Are you suggesting that you consider less than 3.9 or more than 0, or suggesting 0, or keep all your options open 0 to 3.9?
We do keep our options open 0 to 3.9, but it's in how we whittle down to that point. Offer a suggestion as we look above and where people we're comfortable and not comfortable.
So you understand that the big hit there is really the
And it's something I wouldn't want to do. Again, it's how can we get this balanced out?
and health insurance for non-union employees, we would consider 5% for all non-union.
And again, it's got to be a line of discussion, not something that we definitely need to move to.
Can I weigh in here for a second?
Like, that's why it's a consider.
It's to
All
consider.
this-
Mike, I'm not suggesting.
I'm going to weigh in on some things. I'm going
I
to
don't
give you some
want-
more suggestions.
Because I don't want to see, we've already had 2 years ago when we started talking about doing this, adverse actions take place, and I don't want to see this. Anything occur that's going to create hardships or discontent at the same time, we do need to sharpen our pencils, and we may need to find other ways, but are we going through line item by line item and reviewing everything, and where do we as a council feel comfortable? Yes, I understand that Mr. Neely saying, you know, as a committee, we need to make these recommendations moving forward, and come up with these options to consider. But at the same time, again, it comes to how do we, as the elected or appointed representatives of this community, feel, you know, this money should be spent and are allocated. And we could have made things done in the past, and I have to come back to saying that, even though it has no bearing on what we do today. You know, we could have had decision-making over the last 2 years that made today's work much easier. It didn't happen. So we have to look at some areas. But again, there's 2 or 3 things I would choose not to do if at all possible.
Mike?
May I?
Yes,
weigh in
please,
here?
Chief.
Okay, I've been through a lot of budget processes, I've sat through these things, and my frustrations levels run high and low here. What you're talking about in cutting these items out is minimal to the overall picture. Craig, you said the water rates are what, or the revenue's what, 900 for water and 900 for, so that's a $1.8 million
For water and sewer.
total. 3% increase will get you to that $75,000. 3% increase is going to raise the water rates from $1.92 to just around $2 per, is it 1,000 gallons? What's the average consumption?
Average consumption is about
8,000?
about 8,000 a year for a family of 4.
Okay.
The average per household is probably around 65,000 gallons, 60, 65. You're talking about 3% increase of water, sewer, and supermarket. And this is just really rough. I don't want to be held to this. Probably around $10, $12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that seems to be, I mean, I pay $2.62 on whatever the rate is
1,000 gallons.
for 1,000 gallons. And my sewer rate's higher than that based on the quarterly. My garbage rates are higher for one pickup
One pickup, where you're at,
versus
one
2.
pickup?
Yeah. The elimination of things. The frustration that we feel is we came out as, just let's go back 7 days, 6 days to this power outage. You know, we don't, our people respond and stay 48, 60 hours without any sleep, out here serving the residents and making sure everything's okay. And then on the other hand, you come back and say, we're going to cut. We're going to cut their wages and we're not going to give them increases. And you don't want to have discontent, but you're going to have discontent. You know, my people step up to the plate. And quite frankly, the largest group that's going to be affected is my group because we have the most employees that are non-union. As a manager, I'm in that group. Well, you know, whatever happens, happens. But for my people, I need to say, hey, you know, I'm going to take my kids trick-or-treating instead of coming out and take care of the general public that needs to be taken care of. So, you know, what do you do? I mean, I think that the answer to the problem, you know, is to look at that water rate, at whatever that is, that'll take care of that 74 without cutting any of those services. The downtown officer, anything else. You know, and that's my opinion. And, you know, I sat on that side of the rail too, so I know how hard it is to increase rates for taxes. So it's not like I'm saying, well, you can do this or do that, but we've been there. And the bottom line is, you know, how much more can you cut? I'm looking at my budget, and there's nothing there to take out. There's numbers in there that are lower for next year than I had this year, and my numbers are going to be over. So where do I come up with it? I don't know. But you know, that's just one man's opinion.
Thank you, Chief, I appreciate it.
All right, now if we go beyond a non-union employee, but a salary, health care, other revenue items, you mentioned revenue items, pool fees. I don't know if that was the only revenue item.
That's not the only revenue item, but also changes to impact, potentially better pavilion rental, to get to lower the number of current freestanding grills that are out in the community park. And I don't know what that's going to do. It is speculative, but it's starting to go down, whittling down the list of things that I have.
I mean, I like to do, at least, the numbers like to have some rational basis for it. That one, I think is a little, I don't think it's a bad idea, but from the standpoint of budgeting, it's hard for me to make some reason to say increase $1,000. Because I just don't know.
I know, I'm not suggesting it, I'm not moving down past the lines, because we've spoken about everything I had on my initial list of what I'm gonna say is and it is, maybe it's the easy decision making to go to, but it's a hard decision to make, and it's not a popular decision. But they're the ones that hit you straightforward, you know, coming in from what we discuss on a continual basis.
Like, you and I don't disagree about these as being issues. I just make sure I'm clear on this. If you go back to my original, and I mean preliminary memorandum from September 29, I mean, the reason I identified these things in there is because they already said that. That's why when I see like we're being listed, I think that we agree. There are items that we discussed. But now, when you just said that on your initial, these are the items on your initial list, is there any list besides the initial list?
So I've identified, let's review what I have.
Special Attendant Commission,
Okay.
for audit police officer, Mason program, compost hours, increasing pool fees, revenue, and a two-issue salary and healthcare benefits for
Those are the low-hanging fruit that I initially put my list down on.
As well as-
And I'm keeping eyes on my girl.
So now a second budget with those cut
I can take a look at these.
will show a surplus.
Yeah. I can now go back and I can use these items
Good.
for preparing maybe some document that can show.
The only thing I would have for the committee as a whole, the first budget, I would like you to just increase, I would say water and sewer, 5%, the equivalent 5% each one, to then, it looks to me like you'd raise 90,000 that way.
And it's this, let me just say, it's not as simple as just
Okay.
raising those, but if the committee wants to.
The amount of-
raise those,
okay.
It's going to change certain line items in certain ways that we haven't even
Okay,
discussed.
okay. Yes,
But it would account for that increase in order to balance. the budget.
okay, so you could put that rate increase in to balance the budget. The only other cut that I think is possible is Wednesday nights at compost. I don't know feelings on Wednesday night at compost. I know Mr. Clapper gave that as one of the possible cuts. If we're cutting services for everyone else's department, cutting a service in Public Works, I don't know. I don't know how much outcry we'll hear, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, Mrs. Gilbert.
At this
I don't-
point, I don't care one way or the other.
This,
I don't leave it the same way from the item that we
Okay.
want.
Okay.
An item that, as Gerard indicated, it's a discussion item.
yeah, put it
See
in
where we
his.
end up at.
And I'll summarize something that reflects what everybody's decided. I think I have a pretty good sense of what we're talking about. So I feel comfortable about at least having something to the council. The next presentation of this on council meeting.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, I think we're ready.
Started a long time ago, and now we're in December.
I think we're ready. I think we're ready to go to council. Don't you guys think we're ready? I mean, I don't know how many times we can spin the same wheels. I mean,
Well,
today I had numbers, I had line items, and I think we have it. I think you're clear on what this committee's recommending. You have a different recommendation, and that's fine. We'll put two together, two preliminary budgets, and take them to council. Put them out there, let the public see them. Take them to full council, right?
And that's what I think we need. We need to see what some of these reactions are. How
Now, when
they
they-
feel, and how full council feels.
When they go to full council, do they become public documents then? Yeah, I think we're ready. You ready for that, Mrs. Gilbert? I think it's time.
You know what, in my opinion, right now, the budget that we have in front of us that Craig has prepared, it's dated October 28th, is as low as it's ever gonna go.
Well, we went a little bit, but yeah, you're right.
But I'm comfortable in going with the water increase at this point.
Here's the numbers I have. This is what he gave us, 74,541 as a shortfall. 10,000 increase in revenue for the fire truck. 10,000 in decrease for the downtown officer. 500 in that crossing guard line item. 2286 for the library reduction. I have 51,755 as the whole, increased water rates to close the hole.
Which just keep one thing in mind, the police department's budget has been cut drastically the last 2 years, and that can't go any lower on
Correct.
any line item.
No, I agree. This was the chief's recommendation. That wasn't in.
I know,
And-
but
okay.
I'm uncomfortable with the way that has been cut because of public safety issues. I'm just extremely uncomfortable with that.
And,
One thing you can't deal with and make drastic cuts to is public safety, no matter what department it is.
And that still allows us 80,000 for, the general authority money is still passed through to capital, correct?
What about asking the different unions to take not a 3.9, but something lesser?
I think we're too
They
far
would
into-
never-
I think we're too far into the game.
No, they would never even agree to meet, I don't think.
It's a reasonable request, I just think we're too far into the game to pull it off because we only have, what do we have left, 4 meetings left? And we need 2 to pass it, we need 1 for council to see our ideas, we're gonna need that other one for discussion and the 2 in December to get the budget through, I would say. Does that timeline sound all right with you, Mr. Miller?
It's gonna be tight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is, again, I kind of agree with you, to the extent that, of course, we brought this up on September 28th as an option.
I agree.
On November 4th, which is more than the 4th,
I don't think it's an option, yeah, I think we,
had been pursued before back then, I think it would have been worth it.
it's a shame, you're right, it's my responsibility now. Accept that, it was just, yeah, thought we could pull it off without having to go there.
Last thing I forgot, just this FYI.
Oh, I saw that
Again,
too.
that's not gonna make an impact on what we're talking about, but charging fees for,
There, Laura McCungy's playground for the summer is $60,
Oh,
charges
I didn't
$60
see
a
that.
child.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So even ask $20 a child, I mean,
it's not gonna make an impact in the overall discussion of what we're doing.
but to offset some of the fee of that, but
I think my feeling is, it's just not a thing to do. It's like my best kid or something.
yeah, that's what I thought too.
I think you do it.
In fact, I think I'll give you the revised fee schedule, there's not a lot of changes, but there's some. And I don't think that's what they can, just a couple of $1,000 here and there. I just, as my recommendation is going to be,
I thought the money, so 25 is fine with me. I thought we should use,
we change that there, but, I mean, there's, it's gonna be $25, so, actually, they're almost free days.
they do.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Provide babysitting services, so you gotta put a price tag on it.
Yeah.
How many kids do we get, so? even though we-
75,
Oh, that's pretty good.
80, yeah.
Last year was an excellent year.
So you're gonna get, so you might get 1,500, you might get $2,000 in a great year. And that's something, I mean, that's not to discount the cost of the supplies to run it, I mean, it'll at least fund itself in supplies.
Anybody 500 for supplies.
Okay. Then it'll contribute to wages a little bit also.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for the committee?
Just thinking into the summer, and I'm sure Mr. Clark already thought of it, but we do hire a lot of summer help to do a lot of these things. I'm sure he already reviewed that. There was no recommendation brought forward for lessening that load, but.
Ask him, he's probably telling you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I think we're as low as we've ever been.
but it's,
He would need
again,
more.
Summer employees, I think we're as low as we've ever been. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone, appreciate it.